Sedikanya, Makosi, Shalom, Ashe, Namaste, Salam Alaikum, Bula. And you're on the channel where we talk about medicine, healing, and motivation, also teaching about topics regarding healing the mind, the body, and the soul. I have not created content in so long. Welcome. For those of you who are here to learn, you're in the right space. Why do I create videos? I create videos to educate. My life path, is about expression. My life path is, about creativity, and my soul's purpose, right, is connected to engaging with the collective, whether that be through speaking, teaching, many other things, healing in various ways. So I'm not here because maybe I'm bored. No. Right, I enjoy creating content. I enjoy actually teaching, and as someone who's born on the 7th, 7 is the number of the seeker, the spiritual teacher, the sage, the wise one. So those people who connect to my teachings will connect. Sometimes I see comments from new people. I'm like, oh wow, so my content actually does touch people out there, and I'll never take that for granted. Today we are going to be teaching. This is going to be more of a continuation. Remember, I taught about starseeds, right? If you don't know what a starseed is, you can start at the video. It's titled, What is a Starseed? Start there, right? And then come here, because this is going to be more of a continuation. We're going to be talking about more starseed archetypes. All right, so remember, this is the channel where we teach about the mind, the body, and the soul. And the soul is the aspect of yourself, right, that is beyond the physical body, that is eternal. The soul is also talking towards your spiritual blueprint, right, who you are beyond the skin that you're in, or sort of like the career that that you have, your spiritual blueprint, right? The soul is also touching on what? The psyche, the mind. So this is why we are teaching about star seeds, right, because we're dealing with the soul. So there are actually, I think I read, there's about 12 star seed soul archetypes. So we touched on the Syrians, the Palladians, Andromeda Galaxy. You need to go watch the previous video, right? So the next starseed archetype is vegan starseed soul. So the vegan starseed souls are from a bright star system, right, called Vega. And Vega, right, is a bright star constellation, right, that is found within Lyra. Right, so remember I mentioned that Lyra is a star system, right, where their features are more sort of like half human and feline, right? So we're referring to what the jaguars, the cheetahs, the leopards, all right? Half human, half lion, half human, half cheetah, half human, half leopard, right? So they've got sort of like, they are described to have humanoid features, right, with feline features. So Vega is found within Lyra. So the vegans are described to be people who enjoy freedom, right? They do not do well with restriction, right? They value creative expression. They are people who like to also, creatively express themselves. They're very highly creative, right? And they thrive in artistry, music, drawing, singing, and sound healing. They're good at communication, right? So they'd make very good public speakers. They'd make people who can, talk to crowds, convince crowds, because they're good at using the mouthpiece, right? The vegans are some of history's inventors, right? Deep seekers, deep thinkers, seekers of truth, right? They are people who came up with new ideas, technology. These people are also very much drawn to what the ancient civilizations, right? So they might be into history, reading about what happened in the past, why are certain things the way that they are, right? So drawn to maybe Egyptian mythologies, or drawn to sort of like Kemet, ancient Kemet, or drawn to ancient teachings, right, about Mesopotamia, ancient civilizations, and cosmic history, right? These are trademarks, right, of what people who are from vegan star seeds. Then we've got the Mintican starseed souls. The Mintican starseed souls, they are believed to have originated from a lost water sort of like civilization, or a lost water paradise, right? Because Mintica is believed to be highly water. They are described to be they look normal, human in feature, but their soul might also be connected to mermaid-like creatures. So remember I said Syrians, the Sirius B, right? Mermaids come from the Sirius B. Minticans are also believed to have connections to the mermaids as well, right? Because they come from the lost water civilization, right? So these are people that are highly connected, right, to water. The oceans, we're talking about lakes, we are talking about rivers, we're talking about waterfalls, any type of water, right, that you can think of. You might be dreaming of water, you might be seeing water, right? Water, H2O. A lot of Minticans have some really stunning eyes, right? Some people describe them to have blue, shades of blue, shades of green, nice shades of brown, right? They've got very nice eyes, starry eyes, right? These people operate more out of the heart space. They're very compassionate people. They do very well with the role of the humanitarian, because they care. People who care, right, a lot about humanity. They've got this strong connection to humanity and what actually affects humanity. Right, so for example, the wars in Palestine, Israel, right, they would care about that so much, right? They would be those people who would be standing, in front, with their placards, or like with their boards, or with papers, saying free Palestine, right? Because they are humanitarians. These are people that do not like injustices. They don't stand for injustices. They fight against injustice. They could be also very highly connected to music, right? Great singing voices, right, as well. People who've got an ear for music and, creativity, right? What we know about Mintica is that Mintica star is one of the stars that's associated with the Orion belt, right? So remember I talked about the Orion belt. The next type of starseed soul archetype is called Dracona starseed soul, also known as Dracona starborn flame singer. I know it's quite a lot, so I'm going to have to now break this down piece by piece. Dracona starborn flames singer. The word Dracona is actually an ancient word that actually just means dragon. Also known in the ancient world as Dracona. The dragons are real. They exist in higher dimensions. The dragons are connected to the life force of the earth and the primordial elements, right? So when we say primordial, it actually means primary, the first, the very first. These are very ancient. We're talking about ancient history, all right? History that actually existed before any social constructs, religion, etc. Primordial means the very first, right? So dragons are believed to be some of the most ancient beings, all right, that have been existing in this universe. You can go read about them. I'm not gonna teach about where they come from, all right, but they come from very ancient civilizations, all right? So the Dracona part just simply means the dragons, souls that are connected to the dragon pathway. Number 2, starborn, right? So you are from the stars, you are from the cosmic. And flame means someone who's connected to the inner fire. Right, the flame is the inner fire, right? Which is also associated with the spiritual awakening and the Kundalini. The Dracona starseed archetype, right? So these souls are people who have come here to face their shadows. When we talk about the light and the darkness, when we talk about yin yang, right, these are the Dracona soul archetypes. They have come here to face their shadows, right, and integrate and learn about their shadows. The Dracona soul archetype also governs death and rebirth, transformation. Right, so these are people who innately who are going to be going through a lot of alchemy. Right, these are people who are called to sort of like bring change, right, within their environments, because they govern transformation. I mean, if you can imagine a dragon, right, a dragon, that's some very powerful energy right there. You've got this archetype, right, because you are someone who's supposed to bring a lot of change to environments, whether it be your family, whether it be, you know, the environment that you are in, live in, right, or change, right, to people's lives. So you can just imagine this energy is very much intense, right? These people are very intense, very, I would say, very passionate in the things, right, that they do, whether it be through work. They're very intense also when it comes to friendships, relationships. Dragon power, it's not something to be played with, right? They're very courageous. These people are people who are usually not afraid, right, to confront situations. They are able to stand up for injustices, judge situations, stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves. People with the Dracona soul archetype, they are very strong-willed. Very, very strong-willed, right? They know what they want in life, and they don't like to be swayed. They don't like to be controlled by anyone. You can't control the dragon, guys. Someone with the dragon force, right? They don't like to be controlled. They don't like to be told what to do. They are very strong-willed. They are very set in sort of like their thinking. They need to be this way because to whom much is given, much is expected, right? And the Dracona archetype is not given just to anyone. This is probably, you know, a soul gift that requires, you know, a lot of discipline and sort of like responsibility. If you know anything about the dragon can burn down a whole lot of shit. Right, it's not the kindest of energies. When you walk into rooms, you're very highly magnetic. People are just naturally attracted to you, sometimes even to the point of obsession. You don't know why people follow you. You don't know why people are always making videos about you. You don't know why people are always talking to you, right? It is this archetype, this soul archetype. Dracona archetype is these people are highly magnetic. You are a magnet. You might be drawn to very ancient, you know, symbols, gods, goddesses, the ancient civilization, Egyptian mythologies. You might be, you know, into studying a lot of ancient history. Obviously, you know, if you've got a Dracona archetype, you'll be dreaming, you know, a lot about dragons. I think I'm going to create a video about this archetype, and sort of like the pathway, right, of someone who has this archetype. Dreaming of dragons, you're dreaming of temples, you're dreaming of ancient things, right? Because if you know anything about the dragons, they are connected to the primordial. They are connected to what? To the source, the original source, right, of this universe. The Dracona archetypes are also called the Dracona starborn flame singers, right? And the word singer is actually referring to a certain voice, right, that these people have. Voice referring to someone who can speak to crowds. Voice referring to someone who can address crowds. Voice referring to someone who can use their voice, singing voice, right? They have great singing voices, speaking voices, praying. Right, so they are very gifted, right, in what they say. Music, vibration. This is all about what? The Dracona starborn singer. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to do a part 2. There's a lot that I've learned, right, through my personal journey as well, also through interacting with other people. So remember, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, do the right thing, like, comment, share, subscribe, right? I will see you in the next video.